What's going on, everybody? Good morning. Welcome to another episode of College Football Mornings. It is Monday, September 12th. Really quick, would like to say, everybody never forget and remember what happened on September 11th. That was yesterday. I know a lot of NFL teams recognize that. Everybody on social media, obviously a dark day in our nation. For today's show, we are going to be talking about the top 25 matchups for college football that happened over Saturday. We've got our player of the week, our freshman of the week, and our high school player of the week. And of course, Moxley will be joining us here in just a couple minutes to give you guys a look at early lines. A bunch of early lines dropped yesterday. And again, you guys are a part of the website and you're not in the Discord, I really encourage you guys to go to your profile page on the website and jump in our Discord, as Moxley was in there giving you all kinds of lines to bet very early Sunday while the NFL action was going on. And a lot of those lines moved already and is in a really good place. He went, I believe, like 9-2 last week on some of his top lines. Like he's been doing really good, making you a lot of money if you're in the Discord. So I really, really encourage you guys to jump in there. But as always, we're going to recap some of the big games that we may not have talked about on College Fantasy tonight, Saturday night. There was really only one that stood out. It was a top 25 matchup, and that was Baylor versus BYU. And it came down to a kicking fest where both kickers were missing multiple kicks, sent into double overtime, where then, of course, you have to go for the 2-point conversion to end up winning the game. And BYU does 26-20, as they do fail to commit to score their 2-point conversion, but they kept Baylor out of the end zone. For Baylor, their quarterback, Blake Shapen, had an okay day here. 18-28, 137 yards through the air, just one touchdown, no interceptions, does not do much on the ground. He looked human. He's been really good for them at times last year and looked really good kind of just navigating that offense and managing it here the first week, but just really struggled against that BYU defense, which I did not expect. I thought BYU was going to have trouble moving the ball against Baylor's defense, especially being down a couple of their top wide receivers, but that was not the case. Tay McWilliams, a guy that Felix Sharp has pumped up, we've liked here at campus2canton.com. He gets injured in this one. So Craig Williams gets a majority of the carries at 17, gets you 68 yards. Quaylen Johnson gets 2 touchdowns, has the big day for you guys fantasy. No one likely has him on your roster. 67 yards. And then, of course, Tavick Williams, just a 22 on the 6. Again, he did get injured. Moving over to the BYU side here, Jaren Hall. I told you guys to sit him Saturday morning on the tailgate. That was a bad decision. 261 through the air, a touchdown. Does only get you 28 yards on the ground. Obviously, the overtime helped, but he looked just good. He had a couple really nice plays to Chase Roberts, who was the top wide receiver on the day. 8 receptions for 122 yards and 1 touchdown, including a toe tapper in the back of the end zone. It was just a really, really great play by both of them. Not a guy that I would really look at adding to your rosters, but that's something you guys can check out tomorrow morning with Colin and Austin as they'll talk about Waiver Wire Tuesday. So let's run through really quick the top 25 matchups of last weekend. Alabama holds on to beat Texas 20-19. I will hold steady on the fact that Alabama loses that game if Quinn Ewers does not get hurt. We know that he is out. We know more about the injury. I'm going to save that for discussion after the fact. Gets injured, obviously, early in the first quarter. He drove down the field twice, fairly easy on that vaunted Alabama defense, and put points up on the board. I think they win by at least 10, if not 14 against Alabama. It sucks that happened, and it sucks that we're not going to be able to see that kid play for a lot of this season now because of the injury, because he looked really good. We've been hyping him for 2 years, and I thought he looked special. I know it was only 14 plays, but in my opinion, he did look special out there. Couple of off-platform throws. You'd like to see him work a little bit more in structure, but regardless, could have had a really big play to Worthy. I felt like if you would have kept it inside, Worthy probably is able to get under it. Just looked like he may have lost it in the sun. And then the touchdown, Worthy definitely should have caught. But regardless, Alabama comes away with the win. Bryce Young was the notable takeaway for me here. Texas brought a blitz on the last play, or not the last play, but it was like a third down. They needed to get some yardage. Bryce Young avoids the tackle, ducks under it, and then scrambles for like a 12-yard pickup to really put him in field goal range. It solidifies the game for them to kick the field goal to go to 20-19. Too early in the season to say technically it's a Heisman moment, but it reminded me of that Auburn game. I know Austin Nace, one of the co-founders, just said the same thing. Like, it just reminded me of that just incredible moment. Bryce Young taking control of that game. Good to him. Good on him. Ohio State, number 3 in the nation versus Kansas State. They went easy, 45-17. Took a little bit of time for that offense to get going. Defense looked really good again. I may have been wrong on the Jim Knowles defense thing, taking a step back in year one. They've looked really good against the Notre Dame team that, well, did struggle against Marshall, as we'll get to. And again, it is just Arkansas State, but regardless, they looked really good in this game. But the offense took a little bit of time to get rolling. Really didn't get rolling until the second quarter. Marvin Harrison Jr. had an incredible 184 yards, 3 touchdowns. We're just going down the list in the order that they were played here, not necessarily in the order of the rankings. Miami beat Southern Miss 30-17. You would thought it had been a more dominant performance. They took a while to get going as well. Really didn't start going until about the third quarter. Number 15, they get a big matchup against Texas A&M this week. Won't be as highly rated, as we'll get to, as what happened to Texas A&M in case you missed it. Number 16, Arkansas just dominates South Carolina 44-30. That score sounds closer than it really was. Spencer Rattler, I hate to say this, but I think he's done. When it comes to any kind of draft capital, I really think he's done. He did not look good in this game at all. Number 23, Wake Forest. Sam Hartman comes back, and the return, I shouldn't even say a return because the backup filled in really well for him. They put up a ton of points on Vanderbilt, 45-25. Mike Wright comes out in this game. We'll see what happens with him moving forward, but Sam Hartman and this Wake Forest offense looks back. If you had Sam Hartman and you were hoping for a big season for him on the CFF side, he did not disappoint in week one. I think that's going to continue moving forward. Number 18, NC State, finishes a easy win here against Charleston, 55-3. Devin Leary, massive day, 50-plus fantasy points for you. Just a good day for NC State. Great to see them bounce back after practically what should have been a loss in week one. They kind of returned back to form, show us why we thought they had a chance to win the ACC. They looked good. Utah took out their frustrations on Southern Utah, losing to Florida in week one, 73-7. Massive game for Utah. Good for them. They dropped all the way down to 13. I believe they're only at 7, so not a massive drop. And I still think they've got a shot to make the playoffs. They've just got to go undefeated the rest of the season. The big one, though, number 8, Notre Dame loses to Marshall at home, too, 26-21. There's a lot of questions about what's going on with this team. We talked a lot about it on College Fantasy tonight. Again, if you want to get full breakdowns on a lot of these big games, check out the description below. I'll drop the link for the episode. Felix, Austin, Barnabas, and myself spent a lot of time talking about these top matchups and the players in them and everything from a fantasy just to a college football perspective. Spent close to an hour and a half talking about this stuff Saturday night. So make sure to jump in and watch that. Again, I'll drop the link below. Clemson comes through 35-12. No real shots at Cade Klubnik in this one. Comes out in week one. Everybody's talking about, DJU's going to get pulled here sooner rather than later. We don't see much of him in this game, so I don't know what's going on there. The big one, though, Texas A&M, number 6, loses to Appalachian State 17-14. Appalachian State almost got North Carolina. They do get Texas A&M. And at home, the big question, again, we talked a lot about on College Fantasy tonight, how much longer is Haynes King going to be the quarterback? Doesn't even throw for 100 yards against this defense. Multiple picks again. And now they've got Miami coming in this week. Going to be a tough matchup for them. Probably one of the more exciting top 25 matchups this week was Tennessee versus Pitt. Tennessee at 24, Pitt at 17 goes into overtime. Tennessee gets to win 34-27, but the big news, Pitt, Keaton Slovis gets injured. They lose a linebacker, multiple linemen on the offensive and defensive side. I hate to say it, but if you were hoping for Pitt to win the ACC and you were hoping for them to return to the kind of year that they had last year, I don't think that's going to happen right now and it's mainly injuries. Just with the injuries they've had, I don't know that they can rebound from this. Number 19, Wisconsin loses a shocker at home to Washington State. I know on Better Sports Network, Felix, Chris, and myself picked this game, and we picked Wisconsin to win. We did not think that Washington State was going to be able to score on this defense, and then they come out and score 17-14. But Felix made a great point on this game. If anybody scores more than 20, he doesn't know that Wisconsin can keep up. Well, Washington State didn't get to 20. They got to 17, but Wisconsin couldn't even keep up with that. I think that's definitely something we need to watch out for. Georgia, the number 2 team in the nation, continues their roll 33-0 over Samford. Kind of what you'd expect, right? We'll see. I really want to see what this team looks like when they play a more top-tiered, SEC team. When they get a Florida, obviously we're not going to get to see them play Alabama until likely the SEC championship game. So I'm just intrigued to see what they look like when they get to play some better competition. Michigan State, number 14, rolls 52-0 over Akron. Houston, who was considered the top G5 team, loses in double overtime to Texas Tech 33-30. they are going to take a massive drop here in the rankings. Close game, too. It was a really good game for most of that. The matchup between Danner Holgerson and Zach Kitley, defensive side to offensive side, was a lot of fun to watch. Oklahoma beats Kent State 33-30. They're the number 7 ranked team in the nation, and it wasn't as far away as that sounds. Oklahoma did not cover the spread, and I believe it was like only 13-3 or something like that going into half. It was a close game. Oklahoma State definitely turned it on late, but Kent State kept it close. Good on Kent State. And I continue to say that it's harder for these college teams, in my opinion, to dominate early in the season because they don't get preseason games, and their practices that they have are limited. These coaches are only allowed a finite time with these players on the field for practices and everything due to NCAA rules. So I'm not going to hold too much against schools that don't blow them out. I do think it means something for the teams like Georgia that blew out in Oregon. They won 33-0 against Samford. But I do think that we shouldn't read too much into some of these scores if they don't dominate a team. We think they should. Probably the game of the night in Kentucky versus Florida. Kentucky ranked 20, Florida ranked 12, jumps all the way up from unranked to 12th after beating Utah. They lose 26-16. Anthony Richardson looked human. It was not a great game for him. He had a couple really good throws. So there's a wheel route. If it follow Felix, he posted a bunch of them. I think he probably went back Sunday and rewatched the game and was pulling clips. There was a throw up the sideline on the right sideline on a wheel route, and then he had a throw across field, left sideline. I thought good anticipation on the throw as well to put it right to the receiver at the sideline. That shows his arm strength. He showed off his tools at times, but the inconsistency was there against a good opponent in Kentucky. We'll see what happens. If you follow any of us on Twitter, there was a lot of outrage about the things that happened with what we were talking about on Debbie Debate last week. But I just think it's an unwritten story right now on Anthony Richardson. I don't understand the people who say he's a lock for a top 5 pick, but I see the tools and I can see why he can be a first-round pick. But I think we've got to give him time. There's still things that he needs to develop in to become what people want him to be. I'm not saying he can't reach that ceiling because I definitely think he can. And if he does, he's the first pick in the draft, not first quarterback. He's the first pick. He's that athletically gifted. He is a special kid. He's extremely gifted, ceiling higher than anybody in this draft class, but he's not there yet. And there's nothing wrong with that. We continually just put these kids up on pedestals and then just expect them to perform and dominate the way we think that they can. Sometimes it just takes time, guys. I mean, even if you want to throw into the narrative the fact that he had a different head coach last year in a different offensive system, that matters too. We've seen that affect NFL quarterbacks, professionals. So I'm not at all writing him off as a prospect. It's just another chapter in the book that's unfinished. We won't know what's finished until he says he's coming out to the NFL draft. And even then, he's not a finished prospect. He's going to come into the NFL and he's going to get developed even more there. We can start getting closer to the conclusion of the book once he decides he's going to the NFL. But it's not over with yet. There's just things he needs to develop on. He's not a finished prospect. Number 22, Ole Miss dominates Central Arkansas 59-3. So what I was intrigued with is Luke Altmaier was supposed to get the start here, and I believe he did, but Jackson Dart outperformed him 10 of 15 for 182, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Altmaier threw 2 and 1. I'll be honest, I did not watch a lot of this game, did not see much. I don't know if Altmaier got pulled because he got injured through the interception or what, but I think the fact that Dart got out there just solidifies we're not going down the Jim Harbaugh route, which we'll get to here in a minute. There are 2 games away that we're going to discuss, but I think Dart is likely going to be the starter moving forward for the Ole Miss Rebels. USC dominates Stanford 41-28. USC ranked number 10. Vegas had this closer, 8.5 line, I believe. Wasn't that close. Wasn't even as close as 41-28. Oklahoma State dominates Arizona State 34-17. Spencer Sanders, yet again, great game. I think it's that offense. We saw Brandon Weeden do it. I think Spencer Sanders might be almost a start every single week, and I feel crazy saying that. Number 4, Michigan dominates Hawaii 56-10. So J.J. McCarthy, it wasn't a spectacular performance, but it was better than what Cade McNamara did in week 1. McCarthy goes for 229 yards to the air, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. It does add a little bit on the ground, just 16 yards on 1 rush. But then about 10 minutes after the game, Jim Harbaugh comes out and says, J.J. McCarthy has proven he's the starter. No, He's been the starter all along. You were just too afraid to make that choice public. You should have just said it. You were afraid Cade McNamara was either going to transfer or be upset, played a little bit of veteran deference, and you knew that once JJ McCarthy went out there and played a little bit better than Cade, you were going to name him the starter. I hate that crap. I wish these coaches would just be honest with these kids and us. Harbaugh's never going to do it, but it was just, we all knew coming into this game. If you watch any of our shows all last week, all we said was all JJ McCarthy has to do is go out there and do this, and he's going to be named the starter. Like it was written everywhere. Harbaugh claimed he, heard from on high or whatever. That's whatever. It's stupid. Last but not least, last top 25 matchup of the week was number 9 Baylor against number 21 BYU, as we discussed earlier in the program. BYU wins 26-20. So before we get out of here and talk about the players of the week, Moxley's going to jump in really quick and give you guys the best bets for week 3, or look at the early lines for week 3.
Welcome into our early line show on this beautiful Monday morning. Every single week, I'll provide you with the lines that came out yesterday, what we like before the whales, the big money movers, get in on it. So last week we went 3-0. We had USC -8, Texas A&M, Appalachian State under 54.5, and Iowa State +3.5. A 3-0 start to week 2. Let's see what we got for week 3. I'll keep it short. I'll give you the numbers. I'll give you what I like. I'll give you why, and then I'll get out of here. First, Texas Tech +10.5 against North Carolina State. I think this is too many points for North Carolina State. Above 10 is where I kind of draw the line. I project this closer to 8.5 or 9. This Texas Tech offense is going to be fast-paced. They're going to be explosive. They're going to be heavy on the pass rate. North Carolina State struggled with that last season. They struggled against high pass rate offenses and spread offenses. They lost to Mississippi State last year. They lost to Miami, also while giving up 31, and they lost to Wake Forest while giving up 45. This offense struggles when they have to play teams with a high pass rate because their secondary is the weakest part of this defense. This defense is really good. Don't get me wrong. I love Drake Thomas. I love Peyton Wilson at linebacker. Isaiah Moore, awesome. They have contributors in this front seven, for sure. Not the argument that I'm making. The secondary isn't very good, though. I think Tanner Engel, who is the safety there, is their best player, but I don't think he's a particularly special player, and I don't think anybody else in the secondary is someone to write home about. So this is why they struggle against heavy pass rate teams. I think that Texas Tech could potentially win this game. I'm obviously not going to advocate for that right now, but 10.5 is too many points against the Wolfpack, even though this game is in Raleigh. Next one, we're going under again this week. It worked out pretty good last week. Why not? Why not go back to the well? I am a renowned under better because people don't think it's fun. It's a lot of fun when you win money betting on under. So let's keep it going this week. Wyoming Air Force under 50.5. This number is still available on FanDuel. It's 49 on DraftKings, so you're getting 1.5 when you compare books. Always look to different books when evaluating lines. Figure out where you can get the best value because you're saving 1.5, especially in a lower spread game here. I think you could play this number down to 47.5 if you wanted to. I think this number is just too high to begin with. Last season, Air Force ranked 119th in pace. Wyoming was 102nd in pace, and I'm defining pace as plays per minute. A slow ground and pound game is kind of what I expect here. The Air Force defense has been very good so far. They were very good at 2021. I'm not sure Wyoming's going to score that many points. I think we're going to see a lot more similar game to what we saw from Wyoming against Illinois than what we saw from Wyoming against Tulsa when they ultimately won the game. Their offense has not been that good this season. I think they've scored a max of 24 points in that Tulsa game. Tulsa's defense might just not be good, I think is what we're learning. They let NIU run all over them this weekend. I was a little concerned. I thought the unit was going to be better than they are. Turns out they might not be. So I am worried about Wyoming in this matchup. Air Force put up 41 on a Colorado team. That Colorado team is worse than Wyoming, though. I think their defense is quite bad. That might be a bottom 5 team in the country. Not that I think Wyoming is particularly special or anything to write home about. I do think that we're going to get value here from this spread. Again, play down to 47.5. A slow pace, rush heavy game is what I expect. And I think we're going to I think we're gonna hit this under, man. This total at 50.5 is just too dang high. Last one, another under. And I'll be honest with this one. I took this Vandy Northern Illinois under at 60.5, and it has gone up to 61.5. It makes me a little worried. I don't love when the number moves the wrong way. Although last week the number moved the wrong way on us, Memphis and Navy, and Vegas just didn't know what they were doing. So maybe we get more of that this week. I don't understand why this total is so high. And I think because both these teams have been able to score so far this year that Vegas is setting a little bit higher than I think it should be. I'm more surprised by the movement than where this total was set at to begin with. NIU ranked 96 in pace last season. They run the ball at a bottom 10 rate over the last 2 years. They are very run heavy. They pass when they need to, but try not to. They always have a good stable of running backs. I think Ontario Brown, Harrison Whaley, and incoming, I guess he's been there for a while, but introduced to the rotation, Mason Blakemore. I think it's a good trio of running backs, but they don't have a desired pass. Neither defense is good. Let's be real for a second. But the Vanderbilt front seven isn't that bad. They're led by Anthony Orji, who is a linebacker and one of the best in the nation. I think he's one of my favorite players. A ton of fun to watch. I actually thought he played really well against Wake last week, despite them kind of struggling against the Demon Deacons. Vanderbilt's also been slow. I talked about how Northern Illinois ran at 96 in pace last season. Vanderbilt's running 2.2 plays per minute. That would have ranked 90th in 2021. These are both slow offenses that like to run a lot more than they like to pass. Mike Wright is a good rusher, a very good rusher, actually. I don't want to sell him short. He's one of the fastest players in the country, and he's explosive on the ground. But this is not an offense that wants to pass if they don't have to. Both offenses feel that way. So now I'm getting a total that's at 61.5 on two slow-paced offenses, two rushing offenses. I like those odds. And what's interesting about this number, especially, is that they're assuming the defenses just collapse here. Northern Illinois scored a bunch of points last week. Vanderbilt did okay. Vanderbilt scored a bunch on Elon and a bunch on Hawaii. I think the previous results are influencing this spread or this total a little too much. Again, I will be honest. This total has moved since I played it at 60.5. That is concerning because that means money is coming in on the other side of what we're doing. Don't love that. But I think that is wrong. I think that we should be playing the under here for all the reasons I just gave. I think it's slow. I think it's run heavy. I think we're far more likely to see a 28-24 game than we are to see a 35-34 game. That is the approach that I'm taking this week. 2 unders and Texas Tech against the spread. Texas Tech plus 10.5. You have to play that on FanDuel. It's not available anywhere else currently at that number. I want to play it above 10. We're getting it above 10. Wyoming Air Force under 50.5. Again, slow run teams. Vandy Northern Illinois under 61.5. Again, this line is pretty much available everywhere. You have to play the Wyoming Air Force line on FanDuel, but we're getting value, I think, across the board. Let's keep it going after a 3-0 week on our early lines portion last week. Have a good Monday morning. Let's win some money.
Thank you so much, Mox. I appreciate it. As always, giving us a look at the early line. So before we get out of here, let's take a look at our players of the week. We've been announcing them over the past couple of weeks. Had a lot of fun with this. Player of the week this week for the college side was a little bit of a difficult decision. It came down between 2 players. Marvin Harrison Jr. just losing out after getting, I believe it was like 11 catches for 184 yards and 3 touchdowns. But as you're about to see here, I mean, congratulations to Evan Hull, running back for Northwestern. And I say running back, and then go look at that receiving line, folks. 213 receiving yards on 14 receptions and a touchdown. Added 65 yards on 17 attempts and a touchdown against Duke. while Duke may not be a great defense, and Duke ended up winning the game, Arkansas State considered one of the worst defenses in college, and that's who Marvin Harrison Jr. got. So we ended up going with the running back, Evan Hull. And we're going to keep it going with running backs for the freshman of the week, Nicholas Singleton, 179 yards on 10 attempts and 2 touchdowns. Against, I know it's against Ohio, folks, but we've been saying for a while here, come week 2 or week 3, Nick Singleton may run away with this job. He may have just done it against Ohio. He looked extremely good. And last but not least, and this is absolutely insane, our high school player of the week this week, Roderick Robinson II. Congratulations. Running back currently committed to UCLA. Played Mater Day. Look at this line. 33 attempts, 469 yards, and 8 touchdowns. This kid absolutely dominated. My goodness. Congratulations to him. What an absolutely dominant performance. Guys, have a great Monday. Make sure to come back tomorrow as Austin and Colin will be here to run through all of the waiver wire pickups. You guys will see me again on Friday.